welcome to my studio. We're going to be talking about grid drawing today. We're going to be focused on drawing a person's face. You can do the drawing of the person's face without the grid first, and then you can try it with the grid or vice versa. But grid drawing is basically a way to practice proportion and getting things in the right place. So we're going to start off with some paper underneath, and I just have a portrait of myself. We're going to start using this. This is on 8.5 by 11. It's just printed out on regular copy paper. It's a black and white photo because I'm going to make the drawing in charcoal or the like, and it's just going to be black and white. So it's going to be easier for me to see my values if I use a black and white photo. You can use a color photo if you want, but I'm just doing that for today. So with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I have another 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, same size, that I'm going to show you a same size grid. And I'm also going to show you making a grid if the paper is larger that you want to draw on. So the first thing you want to do is start off and make your grid first. You want to make your grid first, and you want to do the photo first. Why? Because the photo is going to be your basis. That's going to be your reference. And let's just say you change paper or something happens, you can start with the photo as your base. So if this is an 8.5 and 11 sheet of paper, 8 by 10 would be good, but you're going to have a 1/2 inch on the edge, but that's okay for this piece, and I'll tell you why. So we're going to start off with a regular ruler, and for what 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, we're going to go along the edges, and we're going to make marks at every inch. So I'm going to make sure that my edge of my ruler is lined up to the side of my photo, my printed out photo, and I'm just going to make a little mark at every inch. Dark enough for me to see it. And that's at 8. And then that 1/2 inch, mostly this whole side of the photo is pretty much kind of just darkness or nothing, special over there. So that little 1/2 inch probably won't be a problem as long as you have the same thing on your other paper. Now we need to do the same thing on the bottom, but now you don't want to turn your ruler this way because remember you got that 1/2 inch. So you want to keep your ruler in the same direction as you had it before. So line it up to the edge of your paper. Hold your paper when you're making your marks. Just make a mark at every inch. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing on the sides. Now this is 11, so it doesn't really matter which way you turn the ruler here because you're not going to have a 1/2 inch out there like you did before. Okay, so you can turn your paper or you can turn the ruler as long as you have the edges lined up and you're able to get to the edges. I'm moving some stuff on the floor. Okay. So I'm going to make my marks at the 1 inch mark every inch. Make sure your ruler is lined up to the edge of your paper. And just to be on the safe side, I'm not going to turn my ruler. I'm going to have it in the same direction to make my marks on my other side at every inch. Make sure it's lined up on the edge and hold your paper when you make your marks. My paper moved, but the edge did not, so that's good. Okay, now that that's done, you want to make sure that your edges, your marks are in the right place on the edges for each side, because you're going to need to use that when you line up your marks. Now, you're going to take your ruler. I'll just start going across since that's easier right now. And I'm going to line up my ruler on this side to this mark and to this mark. And that way you're going to have straight lines, parallel lines, and they should not be slanted. Now with this, you can use a pencil, but for this video, you might not be able to see that, or if you want really detail, you can use a Sharpie. So just for the video purpose, I can use a Sharpie, but I'm only going to do that on the photo. I'm not going to do that on my drawing, and we'll get to that. So I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see. I'm lining up my marks. I'm lining up my ruler to my marks. If you made your marks in the right place, your lines are going to be straight. If you made them at every inch and you didn't move your paper and you started from the edge like you were supposed to, it should be right. This is not going to work if your lines are slanted or diagonal or crooked. I mean, I guess it could, but whatever you do on the photo has to be duplicated exactly on your drawing paper. So if you make a mistake by accident, that's not going to work because you're probably not going to duplicate that mistake. So these are going to be 1 inch squares or 1 inch grid on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. If you have 8 by 10, that's fine. So, and it's hard for me to see that mark over there on that side. And the light was shining on it, funny. Okay, and then you're going to do the same thing vertically. So I have my marks from where I made them earlier. Make sure you hold your ruler and make sure your ruler is lined up to the marks before you make your line. Okay, that was off a little bit. I gotta back it up. You gotta make room for the width of the tip of the marker. There we go. And it's okay that we are doing this on this printed out photograph. You wouldn't want to use your family photographs, a real photograph for this. This is a printout. So that's why we're able to draw on top of this. Just printed the photo from my phone and we're making our marks on the printed paper. Okay, so that should be, oh, one more. Make sure that's lined up. Okay, so that's going to be your grid for your photo. Now that's going to be your reference. To keep you from being confused, I'll turn this black paper over so you don't see those little edges so much. Okay, now for my drawing paper, you don't want to use a Sharpie. Remember, the drawing paper is the same exact size as that paper. Okay, so my drawing paper is 8.5 by 11, just like my photo, same size. So we're going to make the grid the same size as the paper. If your paper, your drawing paper, and your photo is the same size, you can make the same size grid. So if your paper is 8.5 by 11, your drawing paper is 8.5 by 11, your grid is going to be the same size. So I can do a 1 inch grid on this just like I did a 1 inch grid on that. And I'm going to show you the difference for when your paper is not the same size as your photo. Let's just say your paper is larger than your photo. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the blank white drawing paper as we did with the photo, but we're not going to use the Sharpie. And when you're making your marks on your paper, you want to do this lightly because you are going to draw on this and eventually that grid is going to be erased. So we're going to do the grid. Make sure you're lined up on the edge over here. That's very important. Make your marks at the 1 inch mark at every inch. So this is going to be a 1 inch grid, same size paper as the photo. Top. Then line it up on the edge. It's got to be lined up because if not, your marks are going to be off and then something's going to be slanted. I'm going to make sure I'm going to hold my paper while I do this. Make a mark at every inch. Same as the top. And then on the side, remember that's 11 inches. Go all the way to the edge. All you need is a little bit of room to make a little tick mark. And then for the other side, we're going to do the same thing. Make sure it's lined up. Touching the paper would be good. That helps you know that it's straight, because if the paper is touching the whole way, then it's straight. Make a 1 inch. Make a mark at every inch. Okay, and then we're going to make our grid. Make sure you line up your ruler to your marks. This time, with your lines, you want to make sure that you are drawing them lightly because you're going to eventually erase this grid. Grid drawing is kind of for beginners sometimes. Once you've mastered the art of proportion and placement, space, you don't really need a grid. It's like training wheels on a bicycle. So once you learn how to ride, you take the training wheels off. So with a grid, you make that to make sure you put everything right and put everything in the right place. But eventually, after a while, you're not going to need it. But if you're doing a grid drawing, make your lines lighter so that when you actually draw the drawing, you're going to have to go back in and erase the grid without messing up the drawing or erasing the drawing, or you might have to put some of the drawing back. So you want to make your lines light. I'm going to do them a little bit darker for the purpose of this video so you can see it, but don't make your lines that dark. I'm just doing it so you can see on this video. You just need them dark enough so that you can see what you're doing. Okay, and then we're just going to keep on, make sure our lines are straight, make sure we're lining up our ruler to our marks. That way, if you put them in the right place, your lines should be straight and parallel to the edge of the paper. If you turned your ruler and put them on the wrong, put them in one place on this side and a different place on that side, your lines are not going to be straight and parallel. And you'll find that out very quickly. All right, now, and then for this side, we're going to do the same thing. So when you do this, you're going to be duplicating exactly what's on that photo in every single square, just like you see it. You're not tracing. You're just putting the same thing in one square on one paper in the corresponding square on your drawing paper. And we'll get to that. But the purpose of this is to learn proportion, to learn placement, to make sure you have your proportion correct. Now, if my drawing didn't go all the way to the edge of my paper, I would be able to like label, and I still could if you wanted to. You could label these squares, or like if you were in the margin, if you had a margin around your photo, some white space, you would take your grid to the edge of the photo, not across the white space, and then you could put, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, so that you would say, okay, well, what goes in C3? And you'll know exactly what square that is. But my photo goes all the way to the edge of my paper, so that is not going to be an option for me. So now that I have my grid and I have my paper, what I would do is take the grid and the paper and whatever, so same thing that goes in this row goes in this row. So I would count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever's in this square goes in that square. And then you do it until you fill up the whole drawing. Okay, so just very quickly, I'm not going to do this whole thing for the sake of time. I'm just showing you how to get started. This square will be corresponding to this square. So you're not tracing. You're not going to take this paper and do this. You can't even see through it anyway. So tracing is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is putting in the same square here what's here. Okay? Now, I'm going to see where everything is. You're going to line it up where it's supposed to be. So if this is about, and remember, this is in proportion. This is the same exact size as this. So you can do it exactly the same way you see it in this square. How you see it in this square, you can do it on this paper. You don't have to enlarge it because the paper and the drawing are the same size. So it's over about that far. I'm eyeballing it and I'm drawing exactly what I see. In that square. And you do this until you fill up the whole drawing. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you, just to get an idea of where we're going with this. And this is just a regular old writing pencil. These are not my drawing pencils. You want to get your drawing pencils to do this. So you mimic whatever you see in that square. And this is just a sketch. That's not perfect, but you get my point. Right now you want to worry about placement. Worry about contour lines right now. So you get the point. So eventually you would fill up this whole drawing to be exactly what's on this drawing. So if my eye is in square number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over and 1, 2, 3, 4 down, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over and 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So exactly it's going to be corresponding to this. So let me show you what happens if your grid, your photo is not the same size as your paper. So let's just say you have a piece of paper that's bigger than your photo. So remember, I said this was 8.5 by 11. If your paper is larger than your photo, you're going to have to increase the size of the grid on the paper. This grid stays the same. So let's just say I have a piece of paper that is 17 by 22, which is double the size of this paper, of my photo. So this is going to be my actual drawing paper, not my background paper. So if this paper is 8.5 by 11, This paper is 17 by 22, twice the size of this. 8.5 times 2 is 17. 11 times 2 is 22. So this paper, you can't really see it, is 8.5, I'm sorry, is 17 by 22. It's a very large piece of paper. So I'm doubling the size of my photo. So if I double the size of my photo, my 1-inch grid stays the same on my drawing, but I've got to double the size of the grid on my paper. So I've already started making my marks, and I have to get a bigger ruler because the paper's so big. So instead of making a 1-inch grid on this paper, it's going to have to be 2 inches because I'm doubling the size of the paper. So let me get my area to work here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over so you can see the edge as far as I can, that is. All right, there we go. All right, so I've already started making my marks. Oh wait, that's the other way around. Remember that 1/2 inch? Okay. So I made a mark. I don't know if you can see it, but I've made a mark at every 2 inches this time. So every 2 inches, I made a mark. I made a mark. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And then I still have, it's not a 1/2 inch this time on this side. It's a whole inch because, let's see if you can see that, because this is an odd number of inches. All right, so I've made my marks all the way around except for this side. I did not do this side for demonstration purposes. So let me go ahead and do this side for you. Let's go to the edge here. Get it right in the camera view. So I want to make sure I get my 2-inch grid so I put my marks in the right place. I think you can see that. Make sure this is a T-square. And I want to make sure I have enough room to make a mark, but not a whole lot. So make sure my paper is lined up. I'm going to make a mark at every 2 inches. I'm doubling the size of my grid because my paper is double the size. Now it's easier if you work in numbers that are easy to work with. So if I double the size, that's easy to work with. If it's 1/3 of the size or 3 times the size, I mean, you're going to have to do your math depending on the size of the paper compared to the size of the paper on your drawing. Okay, I think I have marks all the way around here. Since I have the paper already this way, I'm going to go ahead and start making my marks here. Now let me, I'm going to hang this off of my board to make it a little bit flatter. You're probably not going to be able to see the edge. Well, let's slide that over as far as I can. Oh, you get the point. You see where my edge is. So basically, you just need to know that I'm lining up my marks like I told you. And make sure your paper is lined up. Okay, hold that down. It's raised up on this side, that's why it's not staying. And if you can't move your ruler, move your paper. Just as long as you have those edges, those marks lined up. you should be good. I think that that's the handle of my drawing board over there. Let's move that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, then you're going to do the same thing going across. You don't have to go to the edge. All you got to do is make sure you got a straight edge and you line up those marks. For the sake of space, I am moving my paper and not my ruler, my T-square. It's very large and cumbersome. Whatever's easier, just as long as you have it still and line up the marks when you're making your marks, drawing your line. The marks are on the same place on both sides. You shouldn't have a problem. And you kind of see how big this paper is. Remember, this is my drawing paper. Normally I would be drawing the grid a little bit lighter, but for the sake of the video, I'm doing it darker so you can see, just as long as you can erase those lines. So now that that's done, this is my very large piece of paper. If I want to enlarge the drawing or blow up the drawing. So I have a piece of paper that's twice the size of my photo, but you still have to follow the squares. So if you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half. Can't see it. So it's the same number of squares. You would do the exact same thing. So square number 1, 2, 3, 4 over, 1, 2, 3, 4 over. I would start making my scarf, but you're going to have to blow it up because it's bigger. So proportionally, you got to go about, you kind of eyeball it. How far is that from that corner? And you start there. Make your contour line just like we did before. How far does it go over here? It doesn't go all the way halfway in that square. It goes about right there. So you start making your contour line sketch as far as where everything needs to be. Got a little decoration there on the scarf. You don't have to do all your details right now unless it helps you to lay it in. That dark line helps me. So I can go there Might not quite be that far over. It goes all the way almost to the corner. Try to get your placement right. Pattern in this scarf, you're just kind of laying it in. If that confuses you, you can go ahead and fill it in. I wouldn't normally be drawing with this pencil. I'm just kind of sketching out for the sake of time. And then we'll go to that next line. There's a little decoration there. It's actually a thicker line. You don't have to do all the detail right now unless you just want to. Some people like to lay it out first and then go back with the detail. Or some people just like to get their placement right. Or some people just like to do the detail as they go, so it won't seem like double work. But it just takes a lot of patience, a lot of organization. Now I'm having a hard time remembering which stripe I'm on. Okay, so then there's one there in the corner. Seems like there's more. Okay, there's some shading there going on. So that's like, maybe I didn't put it in the right place. Yeah, I didn't put it in the right place. I think I've got an extra line here. Okay, then you work on your placement. So you would do that same thing. Each square, just blow it up. Each square, just blow it up. Each square, just blow it up. And there you have it. And maybe I'll work on this and show you some progress, or maybe even the finished product at some point. So I just want you to work on that, work on your proportion, your placement, and eventually you're going to get to the point where you don't need the grid and you can just draw it, just eyeball it, and you don't even need the grid. Just like you take the training wheels off of the bicycle. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your attention and your patience, and I'll see you soon. Bye.